Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. My name is Leon Jones, and this evening I'm going to get into an education type video, and I'll get back to doing a scam series and some politics in the upcoming weeks. But I want to have a discussion based on education and intelligence. What is the difference? You have a number of people coming up there because they have a degree, they think they're educated. Now, I just want to say this: a degree does not measure intelligence. It's your actions that really measure your intelligence. How you process the information. You don't need a degree with that. And I know in our community, you have a number of people who believe that they're much smarter if they have a degree. Well, not everybody can afford to go to college, but it doesn't mean that that person who is on the street isn't intelligent. I mean, I was one of the late bloomers who got degrees, but I learned a little bit of common sense. And I can tell how people react and solve problems just by looking at little things like driving or how they communicate, how they answer questions. A lot of us mix our intelligence with how we really feel, but that's not intelligence. I know there's something out there called you have IQ and you have EQ, but what does all that mean? I mean, when we talk about intelligence, you have people like Einstein who were very intelligent, but they were intelligent in what they studied. You see, just because you know a certain area that you study, it still doesn't mean that you're smarter or more intelligent than the next person. Even when you speak, you have a number of individuals out there, and I look at CNN, particularly a number of women, you can tell they come from academics. Now, I will tell you this about academia. Academia is more or less a or an indoctrination factory. A lot of information is regurgitated. And just because you look up a source, it doesn't mean that that source is correct. Because when I see sources, I want to look at where they got their sources from. You see, a lot of information based on what angle you're coming from has a bit of bias built into it, subjectivity built into it. To really be object in everything, you have to be able to apply the knowledge to what's going on today. Like you have individuals when we talk about politics, the left versus right. You have individuals on the left. These are all your Democrats, all your degreed folks who really think they're smarter than everybody else. But they're not. They live off of theory. They don't do the work. I can pick up a book. I can read that book, but you have to understand that book. Let me give you a real example too. I can take a cookbook and devise a recipe. And I can be smart. I can put in the high caliber vocabulary words. But can I actually take that cookbook and apply what I just wrote? See, to me, if you can make what you compiled work, then you might have something there. But if you're just going off of what a professor tells you, it's all regurgitation. Even in your 4-year curriculum, you have textbooks, but you only are tested. And I'm going to get into a video on standardized testing. Do we really need standardized testing? I believe that's a thing of the past because everybody learns differently. And this is the thing I tell you about degrees. Now, let me go ahead and click on, and let's talk about a little bit of intelligence and education. Now, a person's education versus intelligence. Do you know which one holds more significance? For some people, intelligence and education appear to be of equal importance, while others believe one is better or more important than the other. You see, education versus intelligence is a common debate there, but when it comes to putting them together, they're arguably very different. Let me repeat again. Arguably, they're very different. Now, the two words are also used interchangeably when describing someone who appears to have a high IQ. And that's based off when someone is well educated, we often call them intelligent. Similarly, we assume intelligent people are well educated. However, there are differences between education versus intelligence. Again, there is a difference between education and intelligence. Now, I will say this, everyone has the capacity for intelligence, and everyone is capable of increasing their IQ. Some people are even genetically predisposed to have a higher IQ and genetically more likely to have a high educational attainment ability. Thanks to their unique genetic makeup, some people will be naturally included to be more educated or have higher IQ levels. But those who don't have it in their genes can still become equally as intelligent or equally as educated. Why? Because both education and intelligence, it can be fostered and nurtured, but there are two different things. Now, after this video, you're going to know the difference. Intelligence is your fundamental potential to understand the world and solve problems within it, which includes your intellectual potential. Alternatively, education can be thought of as tools you can use to expand on your intelligence. So, what that's really saying is a number of us have intelligence, but you have academics, they don't understand what's going on in the real world. The obvious, this is where your common sense comes in. So I'm going to dive a little deeper. Now, what are the hallmarks of intelligence? Well, here it is. The level of intelligence is an individual, it's basically dependent on various factors. And that includes your upbringing, your genetics, your environment, and your access to education. So, as a broad concept, intelligence is usually defined as a capacity or potential for understanding displayed by an individual. Now, of course, this capacity can be measured by utilizing tests to examine your capacity for learning, like an IQ test. Now, a portion of your intelligence is also related to your DNA. We are all born with a capacity for learning, which is often influenced by the IQ or intelligence of our parents. So, if your parents have a high IQ, you're also likely to have a capacity for intelligence, while genetic factors account for about 50% of your IQ. The rest is determined by your experience, nutrition, environment, and of course, education. So while a DNA test can show you your current capacity for intelligence or how likely you are to develop a good IQ, your intellect isn't static. Now, what do I mean by static? Well, when something is static, it doesn't move. That's what static is. Now, you can also sharpen your mind by placing yourself in mentally challenging situations and committing to learning new things. can also feed your mind with the right nutrition, reducing oxidative stress with antioxidants so your brain can process information more efficiently. Now, it's also worth noting that there are different types of intelligence. Some people are extremely intelligent when it comes to music and creative practices. They know how to develop their skills in this area and have a natural ability to absorb knowledge related to those topics. Look at Stevie Wonder. He had a handicap, but he could play every instrument. He understood the process of music. Now, you have individuals like myself. I couldn't do that unless it took some practice. That's what made him a genius. Now, did he go to college? No. Now, other people, however, have a more logical or mathematical level of intelligence, which they feel more comfortable with numbers and logical problems. Now, that'd be me. I'm an engineer. But see, I'm intelligent when it comes to the numbers and memorizing directions. That's where my intelligence is. And I solve problems based on common sense and logic. Now, when it comes to education, you're basically, you have to think of education like this. It is the process of developing skills, knowledge, and talents through research, training, and experience. And it can help develop a person's character and pave the way for greater intelligence. Education is also used to help us deliver how to use our intelligence effectively. So basically, the major difference between education and intelligence is that education is something an individual pursues and uses to their cognitive advantage. Intelligence is the internal force you're born with and can choose whether to develop it or not. Interestingly, your capacity for education can be influenced by your genes. Some people are more predisposed to educational attainment than others. And research shows about 20 to 40% of an individual's education or educational attainment is influenced by your genetics, while the rest is influenced by environmental factors. So when it comes to educational attainment, it refers to how long you're able to stay in school so you can absorb the information. Some people never finish high school, while others go on to complete the entire doctorates at a university. While income and environment have a strong impact on the level of formal education a person completes, their personality traits, there's a cognitive function, and brain development are also important as well. Fortunately, having a low capacity for educational attainment doesn't mean that you won't be intelligent or successful. While a good education improves your chances of being intelligent, it is not the only factor worth considering. So, do you need education to be intelligent? I want to say no, because just as I explained to you, we're all born with intelligence. Now, we can expand on our intelligence by using education. Why? Because education is a helpful supplement for intelligence. It's one of many ways that you can stimulate your brain and develop skills. However, it's not a mandatory part of intelligence or not a mandatory part of being intelligent. And you have some successful geniuses and billionaires in the world who were high school dropouts. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg all left college before getting their diploma. Evan Williams, he's the creator of Twitter. He dropped out of college after 3 semesters. Larry Ellison, billionaire founder of Oracle. Larry Ellison dropped out while he was trying to obtain a medical degree. You have Jan Koum, the What's Up creator. He or she quit college before graduating. John Mackey, a food entrepreneurial person, or we can say a food entrepreneur. John Mackey dropped out of college when he was studying philosophy. Travis Kalanick, the founder of Uber, quit college a couple of months before graduating. And notably, education doesn't have to be formal to positively influence your intellect either. We can also become more educated by simply experiencing important things. So, every time you make a mistake, failure is good. You learn from it. And when you make a mistake at work or try something new at school, you're actually educating yourself and testing the boundaries of what you can do. This is why if I make a mistake in something, hey, I admit I'm wrong. I learn from it. You have other people who can't admit when they're wrong. Those individuals aren't educated. They're running on feelings. That's their problem. Now, where do education and intelligence overlap? Well, again, they're both two concepts associated with brain power and cognitive functioning. So the better your brain works, the more likely you are to respond well to education and develop your intelligence. Now, however, intelligence is a characteristic while education is a tool. So if you think of developing your mind like growing a muscle in your body, your intelligence would be like the bicep in your arm. Alternatively, education is the weight you lift to strengthen the muscle. It's one way of training your arms, but not the only option. Similarly to our muscles, our intellect is naturally predisposed to grow to a certain size. So, if you have a good intellectual capacity based on your genes, you have plenty of potential to grow. At the same time, some people will see better results from using education when they have a good capacity for educational attainment. Others will develop their intellect through less formal methods. So, when education and intelligence come together in the right way, the possibilities are endless. The right direction can open your mind, help you hone your skills, and ensure that you discover your talents. Now, getting your head around education versus intelligence. Now, again, we use them interchangeably. They're both closely connected to knowledge and the way the human mind works, but they're very different things. Intelligence, again, is something that you can't necessarily force, but you can potentially develop over time. You're born with a certain capacity for intelligence, just like you're born with an ability to attain knowledge. Some people can expand their intellectual potential over time with regular mental exercises. Education is something that we use to better ourselves and leverage, and basically we can leverage the intellectual capacity we have. Again, for some people, education is the ultimate tool for expanding their intellect. For others, good education is just one part of a comprehensive strategy for true cognitive development. So, if you're keen to expanding your intellect, but you're not sure where to start, try taking a DNA test. Look at your genetic profiling that gives you behind the scenes insight into your intellectual capacity as well as your proficiency for educational attainment. Get an educational, or we call it an education and intelligence report. Again, you get a what we call an ENI or education and intelligence report based on your DNA with a circle DNA test. The more you learn about your genetics and discover your natural abilities, the easier it can be to plan the right strategy for boosting your IQ. Now, I will leave this information under my comment section because it is very, very important that you understand. Because I hear, particularly in the Black sector, I hear a number of African American women talking about how educated they are. We're the most educated. No, you're the most enrolled. Most of you are not educated, you're indoctrinated. And of course, a number of our African American sisters, and you have some other women out there too. They get in power. Some of you got in power through, I will say this, not based on what you know, but from DEI or affirmative action because of quotas. Doesn't mean you're smart. See, some of you out there who, females out there think because you go to school, you get a doctorate. Yeah, you have a lot of debt, but a number of you don't know how to use it in the real world. You may speak intelligently, but sound stupid at the same time. This is why I will tell you there are stupid, educated people. You see a number of them on CNN. Uh, you look at what has happened after this election. The only one on that panel, I believe her name was Abby Phillips, the new person that they hired. She talks intelligently, but I see most of everybody, particularly the black people that she has on the show, they're not very bright, not common sense wise. And if you sit down and listen and then follow their actions, they're not very intelligent. They went to school, but they didn't learn anything. They learned how to repeat what a professor told them to do. The bottom line is this: common sense with knowing how to apply the resources you have. And yes, there are people from different environments, but just because you're from the hood or from the trailer park doesn't mean that you can't become anything. Now, yes, you may have to do a little bit more work, but you can become educated. Just because you dropped out of high school, there are a number of people who dropped out of high school who have made it out here. They made it based on, it comes with the attitude. They wanted something more themselves. You had a number of people who couldn't read and write. And it's not just black people. We always look at, well, black men weren't allowed to read and write. Yeah, in the past they weren't. Then you have some of the smooth talking preachers out here who sound intelligent, but they're not. The bottom line is education is a tool that can expand your intelligence. Again, you can speak. You can tell me, oh, I'm intelligent. Well, you're intelligent based on what? Based on what you believe, just because you speak better? How do you solve complex issues in the world? How do you deal with conflict resolution? If what you say is being challenged, how do you respond? Do you admit you're wrong? Or do you want to be combative about it? Because you think you're right all the time, which we know we're not right all the time. How do you handle challenges that are put in front of you when you don't get your way? Are you going to cower and run? Or are you going to get in there and go at it with a good attitude? Everybody's not made up genetically the same way, regardless of what our race is. But in the end, I'm just going to tell you this: when it comes to education, I just get tired of hearing people, well, I got my degree, I'm this and that. You ain't shit just because you have a degree. Some of you who have degrees, and I look at Kendra G, you get a number of those women up there who are coming up there, and you get some of the men out there who are coming up there, well, I got this, I got that. Many of them don't have anything but what they've been told. But did you challenge what you've been told? You know, just because you're a C student in school doesn't mean that A student is more intelligent than you are. They happen to put in a little bit more work when it came to the academic work, but can they actually use that intelligence with the application of solving a problem? Now, I'm going to be a little biased. I always measure something this way. I can take the theory and I can prove it. See, as an engineer, I can learn engineering and technology at the same time. See, the difference between engineering and engineering technology is there's a lot of overlap between engineering and engineering technology. But the sole difference is engineers are like your educated ones, and your engineering technologists or technicians, they're like your intelligent ones. Now, what do I mean by that? Your engineers are applying all the research, all the data, all the numbers. Now they're expanding their intelligence. But the engineering technologists, they're also intelligent. They don't use as much of the research, but they take the data and they apply it to get it working. And once you put the theory and the application together and you know it works, then what have you done? Well, the engineering technologists, and I'm using the engineering and engineering technology as an example, they've applied that knowledge to help engineer grow with the application, whereas the engineer has helped the engineering technologist grow with the theory. And what does that mean? You have somebody that's increased their learning capacity. You must understand that people learn at different rates. And putting too much emphasis on, I have a bachelor's, I have a doctorate, it means absolutely nothing. So, number of you sisters who say, we're educated, no, you're the most enrolled. Being enrolled does not mean you follow through and graduate either. Just because you can write a paper, and I guarantee all of you who are writing papers out there, are you really writing papers? Some of you are using AI to write papers. I know the tricks of the trade. Some of you are going up there utilizing Quizlet. Some of you are going up there using Study Pool. Some, a lot, because you know how I know? Because I've used them myself. Now, it makes you more resourceful. I mean, there are rumors right now. I shouldn't say rumors, but I'm going to say this is a he said, she said argument. I'm hearing that Martin Luther King, he plagiarized some information for his dissertation. Joe Biden did too. Did it make him intelligent? Made him more resourceful because he didn't want to sit there and go through that nonsense. But bottom line is how you apply everything. And too many of us are putting emphasis on thinking we're intelligent because we have education. It's good to have education. Always expand your knowledge, but you'll never know everything. Einstein didn't know everything. Copernicus didn't know everything. None of them knew everything. Newton didn't know everything. I mean, he discovered a few laws of thermodynamics. Yeah, but he didn't know everything. And these were scientists who didn't have the lab equipment that they had today. But they did do some study. And I'm not banging down education, but what I do see, and I saw it during this political discourse out here, the Democrats on the left, they have it in their mind that they're so educated. I'm going to tell you so many of your congressmen and senators are dumb as hell. They shouldn't even be there, especially that Jasmine Crockett from Texas. I don't even know who voted for her. She makes absolutely no sense. Kamala Harris, all these individuals. You look at all these individuals running cities out here. Yeah, they have all the degrees, And you look at their cities, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Baltimore, Washington, Detroit, Philadelphia. These are supposed to be individuals with some intellect. They don't have any, but they're leading your cities into the ground. And they have paper. I'm not saying everybody on the left is stupid. I'm not saying everybody on the right is smart. But what I do see is a number of the individuals on the left who live in this bourgeoisie type of fantasy zone think they are smarter and better. They think everybody on the right's trash. That's their problem. You see, I always say this: if you can work with the books and do it with your hands, you're the better person because you have the knowledge right here because you're growing your intelligence from the education that you obtain. But if you have education and you don't use it, your intelligence is not going to grow. Again, everybody is basically born with intelligence. Now, whether you grow it or not is up to you. And growing your intelligence doesn't mean you got to be the most suave speaker, because you have some preachers out here. They sound very good behind the pulpit. They can make you move like a record. But once you cut through that bullshit that they're talking, you see they're really out there. I call a preacher, particularly a number of these black preachers, I'm just going to say this: they're like another car salesman. They're selling that Bible because they preach the passages that they want to hear. In fact, some of the education that was given to blacks in slavery, white people made that up. They weren't running it from the Bible. They were making things up as they went along and told that black preacher to preach it to the slaves out there. They did. But see, many of us, particularly when it comes to we as African Americans, when it comes to politics, no, we're not the smartest ones in the world because we do everything based on symbology. That person is black, so we got to vote him in there. But then when you find out you ain't got shit, but you voted that person in because they look like you, that person wasn't looking out for you. This is why, just because you have an education, you got to know how to use it. You got to know what's common sense and what's complex. Just can't go around saying because I got a PhD that I'm the smartest one in the world, because you're not. Because I guarantee you're a PhD and you're hungry and there's a deer out there and you're hungry, what are you going to do? And then you have another person up there who doesn't have a PhD and they're hungry. What are they going to do? I guarantee you, I know if it was me, I'm going to go out there and kill that deer and skin that deer and I'm going to eat for days. You're going to probably look at me, oh, that's bloody and that, well, you clean the guts out, but I'm still eating. Well, you're going to be hungry. The only time you're going to get up and do something is when you have to survive. Then you're using your instincts then. But bottom line is we put too much emphasis on thinking education makes you intelligent. Not true. Education is a tool. In fact, getting a degree is a tool to get you the job to work for somebody else. I just named you some names out there. Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs. They all dropped out of college. They're billionaires. So in other words, they took something that they probably would have been in a lot of debt. They got rid of that. They can afford to buy college if they want. But in the meantime, It's because you have a college degree out here. Don't think you're better or smarter than the person who doesn't. Doesn't mean you're educated because you have a college degree. It's how you use that tool to solve problems in the real world. But solving problems in the real world also means you have to understand the real world. That's why education is a tool. You know, it's just like in a relationship. If you're not constantly learning, and if you're battling and you think your way is the best way all the time, you're not learning anything. Again, my example, you look at those individuals on Kendra J. She always asked them, give me 3 flaws. And a number of them can't even give you any flaws. They give you something that sounds good to make them feel like a victim or make them a victim. Like, oh, I was too nice. That's not a flaw. That's not a flaw at all. That's being a victim. But see, when you have a dumb audience, they're not going to understand it. And then even Kendra, she has a degree, thinks she's a boss, doesn't know what a boss is. But what her boss is, she's going out here making money to sound like a man because she doesn't want a man to tell her what to do or control her because she's been brainwashed by feminism. That's why I also say education is indoctrination in a number of fields out there. You see, education too is basically a tool for something that you study as well. You might have somebody that studies astronomy and they get a PhD and they sound intellectual on that topic that they're talking about. But you put them to something common, something different, they're not going to know because they didn't study it. But intelligence, you can use your intelligence every day. It's just knowing what to add to your intelligence. And education can be free. You don't need a college degree to be educated. Remember, I'm repeating myself. Education is a tool. So in the end, remember this. Intelligence basically comes from genetics, where education is a tool that will help you expand your intelligence. And if you understand education and you understand intelligence, and you put them both together through real world concepts, then you understand what's going on around you, and you'll be able to see things through logic and common sense. But if you think education alone is going to make you smarter, you're wrong. If you don't believe me, you look at a lot of dumb educated people. Focus on your government, particularly the left. So again, education is a tool for intelligence, while intelligence comes from genetics and environment. And in the end, you have both of those together, you can have an understanding of how the real world works, as long as you don't put emotion in front of that critical thinking. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 401 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're looking for some STEM content, check me out on the QCIS channel. On that channel, I give you a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. Now, here's where you can find me. 401 Talk Zone Radio Show, which is my main channel, which I'm doing tonight. You can find me YouTube, X, formerly Twitter. You can also find me on Truth Social and Rumble. And for the QCIS channel, which I will do tomorrow, also find me on YouTube. You can find me on X, formerly Twitter. You can also find me on LinkedIn. And in the end, always be blessed for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Know that the sun always rises in the east and sets in the west. And if it doesn't apply, let it fly. But if the shoe fits, wear it. If you don't like the shoe, then change it. And once again, thank you for listening to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone Radio Show right here on YouTube. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. I want you all to have a wonderful and gracious evening. God bless you. I'm out.